2, 1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the lifeblood of any society are its people, and the point in which low birth rates, high life expectancy, and other demographic factors skew population towards the elder side of the curve, you run the risk of long-term population winter. This looks like Japan and other elderly societies where their economy and their currency, like the yen, are challenged by these aging populations. That is to say, you don't have enough people and institutional support to take care of older people, and you aren't able to have new families and younger people coming in to eventually replace them in the workforce. This is a value judgment debate from the lens of a neutral observer and how we can politically, socially, and economically, at worst, slow this down because it's a huge burden to say that automatically we're going to fix it, but in the best case, in the long run, hopefully be able to reverse the harms of this. A few features of proposition model. Number one, there are many different things we can do to be able to attract people to come to our country, things like liberal visa support and other political incentives to incentivize things like mass migration. But uniquely, what a lot of these different factors have in common is the economic reality and the need of an incentive structure for expecting families, young couples, and people to be able to come in and migrate and hopefully live and study and eventually work in societies like the info slide is talking about. South Korea, Italy, and Portugal. Because they have an end desire of these people repopulating and in the long run being able to start things like businesses, families, and corporations to be able to lubricate and fuel the economy, which to a large extent has a lot of opportunity given that a lot of these people are already retired or semi-retired. Number two, specifically, why are we talking about pension funds and why through this economic strategy? How pension funds work is that you get sums of money from employees and employers, meaning when these old people were working or these not so old people are working and looking to retire, and they put it in a fund run by a bank or an investment firm in order to be able to invest in things like the stock market, the bond market, or the real estate market in order to generate cash flow and revenue for these people to have a comfy level of retirement. We need to understand that to a large extent, especially in the pension funds we're talking about, they are largely liquid. This means that they often have an excess amount of money and return, given that, yeah, sure, you have like a lot of older people, but if you think about it, reaching that level of maturity means that you kind of made it in life already. You're not necessarily having to work anymore. You probably already bought a home. Maybe you have a family, and hopefully you have children to be able to help support you. This debate is uniquely about the structure of these funds and why they have an incentive structure to be able to redistribute these things. Thirdly, what do we mean by the allocation part, right? So what we mean is allocating a huge part or a significant part, maybe 50% or more, or it can be proportional dependent on the population, basically a good amount to be able to attract younger people to come in. This can invest in things that include but are not limited to rent subsidies, stipends for your family to be able to buy food and help your cost of living, and ultimately housing discounts, given that in many instances, especially in the rural areas, you have a lot of space for families to be able to come in, presenting an economic vacuum or an opportunity for the state to be able to take care of them and these people to eventually become taxpayers and productive members in those societies where they would live and eventually migrate to. This debate is uniquely about this golden opportunity, which creates a mutually beneficial incentive structure to be able to help that society, but also giving an opportunity to these younger people to be able to have a good life. Because we have to ask a very interesting question. There must be a reason these societies have a high life expectancy. To a large extent, government services are working, things like public health care, education, and support. And we can say, or we can kind of generalize that to some extent, these people generally like eat kind of clean, their cultures are kind of skewed towards taking care of yourself, like what we see in a lot of these societies, them being vegetarian or eating a lot of fresh produce, which really contribute to the elderly generation being comfortable and being able to like live longer. So what I'm trying to say is that life in these areas is quite good, and for an average family in other corners of the globe, this is something that you would want to be able to have and achieve, creating and bridging that gap. What are the impacts of what I've said? Because a lot of my framing were also substantive, positive material. The first impact is that given that this is a value judgment, you create a mutually beneficial incentive, given that I already mentioned that they have the excess funds and capacity to be able to pay for that. Number two, you ultimately allow the younger generation to come in and thrive when they learn and study businesses and open up shop there, and also maybe eventually be able to meet these older people and even create businesses and institutional community support to be able to help and support them. In many instances, it's quite lonely in some of those parts, and these older people also want new friends and people to be able to listen to. Thirdly, these older people, on average, already have excess resources, therefore creating a surplus in terms of what the pension can spend on, and we ultimately want to be able to have a trickle-down economic effect to be able to lubricate and allow these families coming in, not just to repopulate, but also fill in the jobs and fill in the opportunity that we see present in the rural and urban areas. Ladies and gentlemen, if we do nothing, nothing's going to change, and it's high time we use the advantage we have in order to get these younger people to come in and start anew. We are very proud to stand and open on Side Prop.